First, let's get the big picture. You can see that Rome on the Google Maps aerial view is a bit off from the Mediterranean Sea. The big islands of Corsica, Sardinia, off into the sea itself. And then there's Rome. Rome has a special port, but it's not in Rome. And then as you close in, you can see it's one big city. And I have marked the Spanish Steps, because the Spanish Steps were someplace that every young traveler, and certainly all the hippies, were going to spend a lot of time in. I at one point go out in the country, because there's plenty of country around there. But as you can see, as they say, all roads led to Rome, and they still do. From my journal again. Wednesday, January 6, 1971. Today is a significant day. I've lost Nancy as a person in my life and traveling. This means I'll be alone again. It's a big deal and a big difference, really way more free. I'm sleeping in Papa Germano's hotel, and she is sleeping at the hostel. She's leaving for the north with another chick in a couple of days. Me, I'll be off towards Greece, perhaps alone. Today, the Italians finish their holidays with an exchange of gifts. It's like a Sunday. Many things are closed down. Now I am facing a fresh new trip. That's good. You know that Nancy and I were really not getting along. And Rome was full of interesting things for me. There was the Spanish Steps, which was an incredible architectural set of steps to take you down from one level of a street down to another one. It was filled with tourists and a lot of young folks, and it was the place to go and hang out. Nothing much really happened there, but it was just one of these places, sort of like the Dam Square in Amsterdam or the Trafalgar Square in London. But there was this great European, beautiful architectural steps, and it went and made people very hospitable and friendly because it was kind of a gathering spot. Of course, there's a social scene in Rome, and it, for me, revolved around Papa Romano's, this crazy hotel that we were staying in, which was very near to the center of Rome, and it was a kind of a sleazy place, and there were like rooms if you just wanted a bed, and there was rooms that were private, or you had a couple people, and you met people. You met Mickey, you met another guy, and there was a German kids and French kids, and people from all over were coming in. It was a really fun kind of place, and it was a bit of a scene. So again, from my journal, that same day, on January 8th, 1971, we meet the German kid and his friend and spend a stone night listening to great music. They had a cassette player in their room. Pink Floyd, fantastic. Stones, Let It Bleed. I can't stand it, as I really miss listening to my rock and roll music. It was a good night. They are from Berlin. The Spanish Steps continued to be a big deal for the social scene. It seemed to attract crowds, especially the young and the hippies. And we would go there and hang out. And it was a lot of fun, but really nothing much happened there. It seemed like it was going to be some great event or something, but it was just kind of people mulling around. You know, being on the road, there's a lot of hassles, challenges and hassles, as you might want to call them. And here I'm going to explain to you some of those. Here's in Rome. This morning, I go to get my international student card, and they tell me I need a current student ID. Parenthetically, I had stopped going to school in 1970 in June, and this is just 6 months later, so I still had an argument that I was a student. But going on in my journal, bastards. So I have to go to the U.S. Embassy and swear I'm a student for $2.50 American. Hell. A grand walk and another obsequious day in Rome. Now I'm sitting on a wall in a park not far from the U.S. Embassy. I still have to go back and get my international student card and then come back here to El Al, that's the Airlines of Israel, if I'm to get out of Italy with any money at all. So you see what had happened, folks, is that I had decided somehow along the way, somehow I just need to get to Israel. It's cold. Greece isn't going to be any better. Israel should be warmer and balmier, and I'm running out of money. So let's get your butt to Israel, little Stevie. Going on. Now I'll go to American Express and check the mail. I ran into Nancy yesterday. She got some letters she was waiting for. That was probably the last I'll see of her. It was accidental. We sort of hugged goodbye. Ultimately, it just wasn't a very warm relationship. Being alone on the road has got its attributes, and you love hooking up with people because you get a little lonely, maybe a lot lonely. And it's interesting because Nancy and I started out as very warm, cordial friends, or we wouldn't have thought about hitchhiking across North Africa together again and getting up to Italy and Rome. That was a big deal, and we knew it. But sometimes things just don't work out the way you expected. So when you're in Rome, there's kind of a unique aspect of it. And that is there's a separate country right in the middle of Rome. It's called the Vatican. And I don't know if you know this, maybe I'm mansplaining, but the Vatican actually is its own nation state. Okay. I think it's about 6 square miles, and it isn't even that big. So it is a place you're going to go to because it's the center of the Catholic world. And I was becoming more and more interested in religion, actually, and the way that people practice it and the great beauty of the religious buildings, especially after being in North Africa and experienced the Islamic buildings and the prayer to the faithful these 5 times a day was so powerful. And leaving it, kind of left me with a certain kind of awe for the way these people as a society took on the religion. But here I am as a society, the Vatican is the center of Rome, actually, even though it's a separate place. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Rome is the way it is. But anyway, I'm going to read to you from my journal again, the same day. That would be January 12th. This morning, I went to the Vatican, a separate country. I went with Mick and 2 Aussies who sleep in the room I'm in. The main chapel is grand, but so obnoxious with gaudy opulence, contrary to the creed of helping the poor in the light of the purported religion. I felt this way already, but I had these ideas reinforced. And I would just explain to you, listeners, and at this time, this was a huge place. And you just walked on and on. It took a long time to get through it. There's many different rooms and lobbies and things, and a bit labyrinthine. I go on in my journal. I paid 500 lira to get into the museum because that's how you see the Sistine Chapel. And that was incredible. And its fame certainly seems appropriate. Then I split up from the rest of the group that I was with because I had work to do and had to get some business done. So after leaving the Vatican, I write that I split from the group and went to pay for my air ticket to Israel. A long way to walk. And I pay, but I feel like I'm being ripped off. $69 plus 100 lira embarkation fee. I think that was like $20. Money sure is a hassle. And now I go to work for it in Israel. What a life. But then I can vacation again. Now I'm at Papa Germano's, and there are really a lot of people here. And out comes the social me. I'm panting to get in the other room, like I'm missing out. Now we call that FOMA. Wow, I'm such a person. Well, I'll have to think about it. A dude is playing the guitar, and I want to hear the music. Tomorrow, Israel. A new gig to be sure, but a lot of questions, and the search for a way in this world goes on. It's a heavy trip, and me with only $30 to my name. We walked to the Vatican, and I experienced the Pope's Sunday audience. He hangs high above the crowd like a speck, in his robes, standing in a window off to the side of the St. Peter's Square. Suddenly, a fantastic PA system brought the holy words to the masses, mostly tourists. It once again seems strangely tragic because of its impotence. When you get to the point in a travel and you know you're going someplace else, if it's going home or just on to the next leg of it, you kind of get into this situation where you're so limited as to what you can do. You want to spend enough time and energy to take advantage of the things that are there for you. I mean, I may never come back to Rome, and that was the truth, and I never have gone back to Rome. However, you kind of get into this kind of you don't know how to do for yourself. You don't know how to move forward because you're really in a holding pattern. So I write in my journal, well, 9 hours from now, I will be in the Holy Land. It's very strange to think of the consequences of my life. I could send for money if I hate Israel. I don't intend to hate Israel. I intend to experience it fully, as I've been experiencing for these months. So the reflection is that I'm a poor punk traveler, really, making it $100 at a time at this point. I've run out of money, frankly. And it's of great concern to me. And yet I don't want to go home. And my brother's sending me some money, so I'm going to keep scratching. But the main thing is, you're thinking about ahead too. You have no idea what you're up against. It's not like now where you can go on the internet and you can see all these places like I'm sharing with you and you learn all these things. We basically had about zero in terms of technology at that point. And I was working with traveler's checks and it was a whole different world. But I was at this point in anticipation of the travel and really kind of killing time. I have a ticket on El Al Airlines. This is Israel's own national airlines. One of the things I didn't think about that much at the time was that when you fly El Al, it is a very high security situation because of all the issues with Israel, the Arab states, the whole history of the anti-Semitism, etc. So you have to understand that they really are holding you up. They'll stop you for 5 hours or 5 days if they feel like it, or if they think there's an issue. So I write, the trip to Israel, it's delays. It left late. It left very late. The plane was filled with Israelis and their security issues, and they let the plane stay late into the night. Then finally we leave at about 2 a.m. and we get into Israel, and basically it's the next morning. It's a 3-4 hour flight. It's not that short. We get into Tel Aviv, and I'm like whacked out from basically pulling an all-nighter again. And I get off the plane, and the security people had taken my pocket knife. Now, one of the things I haven't mentioned is I did have a pocket knife with me. You'd think they wouldn't let me through borders and things, but they did. I always had a pocket knife. And as you'll see, there's various times when I will lose my knife as I go along, and I've got to get a new knife. So guess what? Security says, sorry, Stevie, you ain't getting on this plane with that knife in your possession. We're taking it over. I stagger off the plane. I don't think to ask security for my knife back, and I'm without a knife, which is very important to you when you're traveling. You need some kind of tool. And I literally hitchhike into Tel Aviv, and I find my way to a youth hostel. These internationally certified youth hostels are a particular thing. But I am in Tel Aviv, and all of a sudden, I'm in Asia, another continent, the fourth one. I spent yesterday in a park in front of the youth hostel. It just turned cold here, they say. In the hostel, I heard nothing but bitching about working for money and kibbutzes. Well, guess what? I was in Israel, and my plan to kill some of this winter was to stay and live on a kibbutz because you could do it for free, I was told. So this was a little dispiriting, but I went on, and as you'll see, I did ultimately go stay in the kibbutz. So after a few days in Tel Aviv, kind of hanging out with the guys in the hostel and going around the city, going to the old town of Yafo. It was an ancient city. And then going on, getting our designation, we wind up going up to Ayelet HaShachar in the Upper Galilee. The first few days, you'll see our days where we become acquainted. We get assigned to a room. I'm with my friend Jim Camper, who I spent some weeks with at the kibbutz eventually. And it was a great time moving forward in my life to some place that seemed like Pepperland to me. It was a very idyllic, communal place where they accepted volunteers. We'll talk about those intricacies next week as well. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year to you.
This morning, I go to the Vatican and the Sistine Chapel. I pay 500 lira to get into the museum. I go with Mickey and 2 Aussies who sleep in my room at the student hostel. The main chapel is grand, but so obnoxious with its gaudy opulence. It doesn't seem right to me. Displays of vast riches run contrary to preaching the creed of helping the poor. The Sistine Chapel is just incredible. Its fame certainly seems appropriate. Michelangelo was a phenom. I split off from the group after the Vatican tour and go to El Al to pay for my ticket to Israel. It costs 69 American dollars plus 100 lira embarkation fee. Now today is my last day in Rome. It's a beautiful Sunday. I wake up at 8 and head off with a group from the hostel to the local neighborhood flea market. Much merchandise and goods, vegetables and fruits, and many meats to choose from. But I don't want anything. I just enjoy walking through the market with the native Italian people. After a couple hours of perusing, I head out to the main streets, eventually working my way to the Vatican. I get to experience the Pope's Sunday audience, like a white speck in robes from my far-off vantage point. I spot the Pope standing in a window ledge off to the side of St. Peter's Square, high above the massive crowd for all to see. The fantastic sound system of speakers blares out the holy words from the Pope to the masses. Afterwards, I head back to the hostel to pack up my gear and be ready for the next leg of the journey. I walk by the Forum and Colosseum one final time. Life is grand. The sun is out, the sky is blue and pure. My thoughts skip forward to the new journey ahead and what fabulous adventures it may behold. I look forward to new experiences that await just beyond the horizon.